Welcome to the world of Blenderism. I am glad to greet you once again. In this episode I want to show you what techniques, tools and settings I use to create what I think are cool photos. I will show you tricks on how to create gradients correctly, control and manage lighting elements, or as I call them, light panels. So sit back and don't forget to make yourself some tea. As for me, I made raspberry compote with cookies. Well, I suggest moving on to the first scene. First of all, let's add the almighty cube and use it to make the floor and walls that will surround our car. Go to edit mode and select faces and delete the top and front ones. Transform it in size with simple manipulations and throw a bevel on it. Increase the number of segments to approximately 7 and use Shade Smooth. Go to the top view using the number 7 on the numpad and place the 3D cursor in the center of the roof of the car so that the light that we will eventually add appears immediately closer to the right place. Now, when we directly begin manipulating the light, I suggest dividing the screen into two parts and turning on one of them in rendering mode so that we can see what changes in the light occur in the process. World lighting should be turned off so that there is absolutely no light from the world so that we illuminate the car only with devices. And so we add the light area, raise it a little above the car and stretch it along the Y-axis so that it protrudes beyond the edges of the car and illuminates the bumpers for us. The power of the light can be set to 300, but we will still adjust it in the process. Copy this area of light, move it to the side and set the power to 80. As you can see, I moved the lighting element behind the car because we need to slightly illuminate the edges of the car to see the outline, but since the light area is very large, it needs to be reduced and we will illuminate the hood and front window. You need to slightly illuminate so that the glare is barely visible. As a result, I placed it at an angle and lowered the power to 30W. When ready, copy this area using Shift-D and you need to make the same effect on the roof. And it looks like we still need to light the light to 10 watts. Well, it remains to make the same effect on the spoiler. Copy the area, reduce it in scale and need to direct it a little to the side, and it looks like you need to increase the number of watt. Let's try to reduce the area scattering to 120 degrees, and the power to 120 as well. And so we analyze what we got. The doors and wheel arches are illuminated quite well. Well, both wheels and the area above the door still need to be improved. There is no light on it. We'll get back to this now. Let's enlarge the scene a little. Since now I want to make a halo that will glow around the car, and for this we need to move the scene further so that there is a small distance between the car and the wall. So that the edges of the floor and wall are not visible, they need to be lengthened a little. Now add a spotlight and point it at the far wall. Raise the blend to 1. And the spotlight shape needs to be compressed along the Z-axis. And so we return to the wheels. Let's highlight them with a spotlight. I choose this particular element because I don't want any glare. And so you need to adjust the power and spot size a little, and you can copy and direct the same spotlight to the second wheel. And here is such a super ultra powerful denoiser I use. If you are interested, write in the comments "I want denoiser." If at least 5 times I see such a comment, then I will make you a release. Well, and do not forget about the area on the door. Here we also add the light area. Scale it. Adjust the power, and actually you can render. Here is such a simple light setting. The photo turns out beautiful. Now here I will quickly show you how to make another version of lighting, only much more dramatic. We take the scene and the camera that we have, rotate it 90 degrees, put the scene in the center and delete almost all the light elements except for one plane and a large spotlight. We copy the light area and place it mirrored on the other side of the car. We need this in order to highlight the bumper or shapes that we have in front of the car. I did this part in the laptop's battery saving mode and it slows down a little, so I apologize for this. It will be fine later. Okay, a good start has been made. I think you can divide the screen into 2 halves and turn on the rendering mode. We will adjust the lighting. To begin with, let's select 2 areas that can be moved a little at the same time. We will choose a good position. Okay, and now you can move the scene a little to place the spotlight lighting behind us. We will also make a halo. Now, as you can see, there are traces of our light areas on the floor. We need to rotate them the floor in the form of scattered rays. So that there is no abrupt transition, you can raise it a little above the ground. But make sure that the rays still hit the car. So now you can move on to the spotlight. We will place it exactly behind the car, direct it to the back wall. You can change the color. I suggest installing orange. And put it and set the power a little stronger, somewhere around 3,500 watts. Well, and to all this we add the light area and place it. The task is to place it behind the car so as to slightly illuminate the roof so that the outline is barely visible. This is the moment when there is no need to rush, and I found that this area of light reaches the front wheel arches, which is very good. When you have chosen the position, you can slightly dim the light power. I also want to place the light areas next to the mirrors so that they shine on the side of the hood and slightly illuminate the edges. I need to move it a little to choose the right position. We set it to 10W power and copy it to the other side symmetrically. There is also one such moment that the chrome outline around the windshield is not visible. It needs to be illuminated so that the light does not fall on other objects, and there is a special technique for this. First, the chrome outline needs to be placed in a separate collection. Add a light area. Go to the Object Settings and then in the Shading tab there we find Light Linking and add the folder in which our chrome outline is located, and thus this light area will shine only on it and not interact with other objects. We adjust the light power a little and everything is ready. We are great guys, we learned a new lighting technique. This technique often helps out, so remember it. And then I realized that the scene has no material. So let's add it. Let's choose a dark color and raise the roughness so that it doesn't glare. Now, because of this, we need to significantly increase the lighting power. I raise the spotlight to 30,000 W. In the light area, we leave it like that. Now we copy the spotlight, drag it to the hood. But we need to reduce the number of watts. Also we need to make light spot smaller and change color of projector to white. And we return the blend to 1. So, let's see. I turned on the headlights. It looks menacing in my opinion. And it seems to me that we need to add more light to the hood. You can raise the number of watts to 15,000. Yes, that's better, good. You can also try to tweak the roughness of the scene a little. See how it will improve the overall look if it reflects a little light. Well, in fact, everything can be rendered. 30 seconds of your attention. I want to show you one cool thing. Here you can customize the Blender interface look manually or download themes from the internet, which is what I did. Now I will have other Blender interface colors. You can rename the channel in Blender Hub, if you know what I mean. And so let's move on to the next scene. Here I will show you more sensitive settings of lighting devices with which you can achieve very cool results. Here I use exactly the same Lamborghini Huracan. I like it because I made it myself completely. First, you need to add images as planes to the prices. I call them light panels. But in fact, these are planes on which gradients are superimposed. I made them in literally a couple of minutes in Photoshop, because it is very easy. Of course, this can be done with nodes and I will do this in this issue, but for other purposes. So I will go to the material mode so that it is clearly visible how they look and what is happening. First, I'll take an oblong plane and place it behind the car to highlight the wall and floor. Then we go to the object settings, find the shading setting there and add the scene collection there so that our plane shines only on the scene and does not affect the car. I'll switch to render mode to clearly show you how these settings affect what's happening in the scene. As you can see, the world lighting is turned off and only the car's headlights are lit. Images as planes are added to the scene using the BSDF principle. Let's change it to emission. And then we go to the visibility tab and we need to uncheck the camera in glossy so that this plane is not visible to the camera during rendering and there are no glare from this plane even when it is invisible to the camera. You need to set the lighting power to about 10 and play a little with this value to find the right ones. I found 7.2 is right value for me, let's left it there. Then you need to take another light panel in which a circular gradient is configured and place it above the car and repeat, in principle, the same procedure with the object settings. The task of this panel is to highlight the place where it will be located but not to shine on it, that is, you need to scale it so that it is wider than the car and can illuminate the plane around the car. For convenience, you can turn off the first panel that we used and add a mix color and turn on the red color there and see what a beautiful soft light falls around the car. And just like with the first panel, we need to go to the shading object settings and turn off visibility from the camera and glossy. Okay, now we can move on to the third light panel. I will return to the material mode in order to clearly explain what will happen now. It does not suit us because, as you can see, we have a very sharp transition from black to white, so we will have to do it manually. You need to make a UV scan for our panel and in the shader build such a node system. Our task is to make a smooth transition from one color to another in order to achieve the most beautiful result. Now you will understand what I mean. If we place this light panel next to the car and connect the emission to it, we will get a very smooth soft light gradient on the car body, which you can't achieve with ordinary lighting devices. So let's set up the camera. Here I'm using a 70mm wide lens. We set the focus to the dummy that's in the center of the hood. Let's go into rendering mode. I'll show you what result this panel gives. Look at the solid soft gradient that goes across the entire body of the car from left to right. I think it's really cool. But we go further, go to the object settings, go to the shading tab, and add our Lamborghini collection there so that this panel only shines on the car. Then we go to the visibility tab and there we turn off the shadow from our panel and the interaction for the camera. And bam, look what we got, that we only shine on the car. Now you can move the sliders on the color lamp node. You can try to make the colors darker or lighter. A very cool result. It looks like a magazine cover, and we're not done yet. I don't know about you, but I get pleasure at such moments. As you can see that our car is red. Let's change the color of the overhead lighting to a little orange and make the far light panel the same color with it. Make the background similar to gold. I want to show you the difference between how the light area works and our gradient. Even when the light distribution is now set to 180 degrees, you can still see a clear transition. You will not achieve such a gradient effect. So good, admired a little, we can move on. I move the camera a little to the right so that the wheels in the photo on the right side of the car are visible and add one light area, which I place in front of the hood in order to highlight the bumper and grille a little. I go to the object settings, add Lamborghini to the light group to shine only on the car and not on the floor. So good, set up a little and move on. Now I want to add the same soft gradients to the right side of the car. Add another plane and we will make gradients from it. Add a new material. Add emission, color amp, gradient texture and press Ctrl T to add texture coordinates. For this you must have the Wrangler node enabled. Make a UV unwrap for the plane. And in order to stretch our gradient more along the plane you need to add a mathematical node and put it on divide. You also need to adjust the brightness of the colors a little. And in the object settings, turn on so that this plane shines only on the car. So now I want to turn it over and put it at a slight angle so that the gradient also goes at an angle. And in the object settings, turn off the shadow from our plane and make it invisible to the camera. Well, now you can move our plane a little to see how it will look better from the side, what brightness we should apply. And we also need to highlight the chrome outline around the glass. Let's add a light area, scale it, and place it on top. And you need to place the contour in a separate collection for this function to work. Press the dot on the numpad to quickly find your object in a large list and then press the M button to quickly place your object in a separate folder and you will immediately see a menu where you can set a name for it. Well, that's it. We're done with the settings, we like everything, we can render. So, well, we can move on to the next scene. In this mode, you can see how many elements are used to achieve a good result. And that's not all. If you want, it looks like we need to rotate this side plane. And we'll move the top one a little. And in general, you can add a little color, for example, orange. Let's see how it looks. I suggest leaving it with orange. The next step is to add 2 grills and 2 exhaust pipes to a separate collection so that the light area shines only on them and we see a small reflection. And we'll tweak the light brightness a little. But the main thing is not to overdo it. Then I made another light panel like this. I want to place it at the back of the car. Let's try to make some more interesting gradients. I set orange colors on sides and white color in center so you can see how it looks with it. Look at the situation without it. And when we turn on the light panel, a cool gradient appears, but in my opinion it's a little overexposed. You need to screw up the light power. And we can also use it to highlight the bumper. Let me scale it a little and move it a little in order to catch the right position and highlights. Well, when it's ready, you can render it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest moving on to the third lighting option. To do this, create an almighty cube and scale it. You need to place it so that the car stands on the floor. Now you need to separate the upper plane. This will be the ceiling that performs the lighting function. Assign it the emission material, add a color lamp, but we'll get back to this now. Next, assign materials to the walls. These will be the mirrors, set to metallic on 1, and the roughness to almost 0. And add a gray floor. I set the camera slightly at an angle tilted to the left to create a certain kind of mood and direct it at both the car and the mirror in front of it. It seemed cool to Putin to take a picture of it just like that, so that the reflection was visible. When we switch to render mode, we see that thanks to only one ceiling that illuminates the scene and the mirrors that reflect the light from this ceiling, we have already received a pretty beautiful image. But there are still things we can adjust. For a more pleasant perception for the eye, you need to add horizontal things in the image, so that the viewer who will look at the image could understand where the horizon is. I suggest making a molding between the mirror and the floor. In such little things lies the secret of a good image. Just as we can see in the mirror, we have more than one reflection of the car. In the render settings, we have the ability to limit this amount. Go to the Light Paths tab and set the glossy to 1. This means that our image will be reflected once, but at the same time the spread of light from the ceiling is significantly reduced. Therefore, we need to set it up too. We divide the screen in half and go to the material mode in order to see how the gradient will lie on our ceiling, and so on. In an unknown way, we impose the gradient. I have specially brought out the shader settings for you, since they are individual each time. Well, now we can return to the render mode and see how our gradient affects what is happening in the scene. You need to move the sliders, tweak the brightness of the colors, maybe adjust the influence of the Divide node. And this is only with the help of the ceiling. If you want, you can add more light elements if you can't achieve what you want. I set up a hotkey combination Shift F so that I could fly in 3D space from the camera view. If you want, you can watch separate lessons on how to do this. Well, this is the blazing fire. I am happy, we can render. So well, what can we do to increase the complexity of the scene design again? Let's move on to another version of the lighting settings. I hope you like what's happening. Now, in order to create the effect of tiles on the floor, we need to subdivide the lower plane. Press the I button twice, which means insert so that each square is individually reduced and slightly raised along the Z-axis. I also made the floor material metallic and less rough. After that, we can add bevel and shade smooth. Next, we need to darken the ceiling by half so that the colors that we will use in the scene stand out. And not just darken but also add colors to the gradient. So what do we have? We have a fairly dark scene. Now we can start adding elements of disco lighting one by one. Let's call it that if you don't mind. Let's add a curved circle. To add such an element you must have the extra objects add-in enabled. Let's scale it a little, add depth. That's why I chose a curve, because it is quite convenient to work with it, and we will place it around the car. In general, if you figure it out like this, instead of this circle, you can use any element that you like more or that suits you better. I also added an array modifier to it in order to make two circles, which will ultimately give us two reflections on the car and on the floor. Now you can start adding material to these circles, and here in this place you can do one trick. After the node, you texture coordinates. We will place the water to separate the color and set it so that the wind spreads along the x-axis, and we will connect the color ramp not only in emission but also in alpha so that you can make transparent areas on this circle. The black on the color ramp stripes is responsible for the transparent color. And since the blender is currently using the object's coordinate axis, if you rotate the object around its axis, this effect does not stay in place, it moves in a circle. Well, now we can add bright colors to this circle. Try moving them, move them, see what suits you best. You can also add additional runners with black color so that there are transparent places on the circle. In general, the main task is to make a beautiful reflection on the car. You also need to make these circles invisible to the camera. And when we have achieved the desired effect, we can move on. We add a mighty cube, increase it to the size of the scene and delete the principal BSDF, and instead of it, we make a volume scatter. Connect to volume. Set its value to 0.02. We do this to add saturation to the photo. Next, we can still customize our light panels. You can add another one above the trunk. You can use not only black and white in them, but multicolored ones. Add bright colors that will also be reflected on the car and create a certain mood. It seemed to me that the bumper was not illuminated enough, so I added a light area that would shine only on it. And in the object settings I added it to the light group so that it would shine only on the bumper. It did not hit the floor. Well, that's all for now. I want to ask you not to forget to click like. If you want to say something, say it in the comments. It will support the development of Blenderism. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, learn hotkeys. They will make your life easier. Don't rush, try different settings and pray for Ukraine. Thank you, bye.